everybody, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel, Chatting with Tups. My name is Karen and I like to make fun and entertaining videos that might teach you something. Today we are going to make breakfast brownie bars out of this really cool cookbook that I have recently gotten, and we're going to see how they turn out. So let's get started. First thing that we're going to do is make our base for our oatmeal breakfast bars. And we start out with 7 tablespoons of stick butter and 1/3 of a cup of milk chocolate chips. And we're just going to let these melt real quick. And then, see, I'm just going to melt down the chocolate chips and the butter. And then we're gonna let it cool while we do our next step of the recipe. I'll probably have you guys all kinds of crooked. There we go. And I've just got it on low heat right now. Grease a 9x9 pan. And I like to put the wax paper in the bottom just to make it easier to come out. So I've already done that. So the first thing we were supposed to do for this recipe is melt our butter and our chocolate together over medium heat, stirring frequently, which we did, and we've got that all melted, and now we're letting that cool. I took it even out of the pan so that it would cool a little bit quicker. The next thing we want to do is beat our sugar, eggs, and vanilla in our mixing bowl. We need 3/4 of a cup of sugar. 1, 2, 3, and then we need 2 eggs, which, as you can see, there's going to be 4 eggs in this recipe, so I went ahead and got mine kind of settling down a little bit. So I'm going to take those out and put those over there and hope that they don't roll away, because my eggs seem to love to roll away. All right, so we're going to put 2 eggs in. So we need a half a teaspoon. All right. So there's our half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then we're just going to mix this up until it is nice and smooth. Next thing we need to do, now that we've mixed all of that together, is we're going to put our cooled chocolate mixture in here. I'm just going to scrape that bowl a little bit because I want to get all of that wonderful chocolate into my recipe. And now we're going to mix that until it's all nice and well blended. All right, so the next thing we're going to add is our 1/3 of a cup of flour. And the recipe does ask for a little bit of salt. And if you've watched any of my previous videos, you know I really don't like adding salt to recipes, so I'm just going to put a tiny little bit. And that's it. Now we're going to mix that together. Next thing we need to do is we need to take this and put this mixture down in the bottom of our greased baking sheet. And I definitely recommend that you do a good little swipe around the edges. Again, I'm always talking about how wonderful these KitchenAid mixers are, but sometimes, you know, they will leave a few little remnants of something at the bottom, so you want to make sure that you get everything mixed in really well. And then we're just going to pour this in the bottom of our pan. And then we're going to stick it in the fridge for about 15 minutes to let it cool a little bit. Get a nice good chill on it. Take 2 teaspoons of instant coffee. I just used my little Folgers Classic Roast. And 2 teaspoons of boiling water. And we're just mixing it together, kind of making a little bit of a paste. Just make sure that's mixed in good. Smells wonderful if you like coffee. Okay. All right, so we're just going to let that sit aside and just kind of turn into pretty much kind of a paste. So we have that. Butter and brown sugar. So this is 8 tablespoons of butter and 1 cup of brown sugar into our bowl, and we're going to mix it up real quick. All right, so we've got that all nice and blended in really good. Let me bring y'all back out so you can see everything. And now we're going to beat in our eggs one at a time. I'm going to wait until those are fully blended before we put the next one in too. Now would be a great time to go ahead and preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit while you're still waiting for your chocolate base to cool off some more and get your oven ready so that all of this is ready at the same time. So the next thing we need to put in is a half a teaspoon of vanilla. And again, I'm using the vanilla paste. So we're going to put half a teaspoon. And then we're going to put in our coffee paste. Okay. So I'm just going to pour that in. I mean, it is a breakfast bar, so we need to have our coffee, right? Okay, so we've got that in, and now we're going to blend that up so that everything's mixed in really well. All right, so we have our 1 3/4 cup of flour in there, and now we're going to put a half a teaspoon of baking powder in there. Swish that a little bit right on top, make sure all that baking powder doesn't stay in one place. And then again, it asks for a little bit of salt, so I'm just going to put a tiny bit of salt in there. I don't think it needs it. Now we're going to mix that in really well. We're going to add our 2 1/2 cups of quick oats. Okay. Let's see. One. All right, so that's 1 cup. And 2 cups. And what's left. And that's always the fun of baking when you think you've got enough ingredients, but you might be a little bit short. And then we're going to add in about a half a cup of walnuts or pecans or whatever kind of nut you have. These are pecans, and I've ground those up real good. And then we're just going to hand mix those around. Make sure we get everything blended in really well. You want to make sure that those oats and the pecans are nice and wet from your batter. And you can do this with your blender if you've got a really good mixer that can do it. The recipe said you could do it by hand, so I'm sure they have a good reason and get you good arm workout. You know, people say baking isn't good exercise. You got to burn those calories so you'll have plenty of room for your breakfast bars that you're about to eat. All right, here's our original chocolate base that we made that's been chilling for about 15 minutes. And we're just going to plop this right on top of it. And yeah, it's probably going to get a little bit of the chocolate mixed in with it, but you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not putting this into a contest or a show or anything, so what I'm going to try and do is maybe put some little blobs here and there so that it can be a little bit easier to mix around when I need to. See, I'm just putting little small blobs, pieces, spoonfuls, whatever is the better way to word that. Just gonna get this all put in here. As you can tell, I'm always a messy cook. I don't think I could be a neat cook even if I wanted to. I'm just good at being messy. Sometimes your hands are the best instruments anyway. Best utensils that you can work with is your hands. Okay. So we've got everything out of the bowl, and now we're just gonna try and mix just kind of pat it down a little bit is what I'm gonna work with. And you see the chocolate's trying to kind of bubble up a little bit, and that's fine, that's gonna happen. You know, you can't help it, but just try and get your top mixture pressed down a little bit. So that it's, for the most part, it's covered. Okay. All right, so we're gonna cook this for about 27 minutes. And again, I've always told you, you just got to be careful with your own oven. You want to make sure that your toothpick comes out all nice and clean with no crumbs on it, no batter or anything when it's time to come out. So we're just going to put that in the oven. And again, we're going to cook it for probably about between 27 and 30 minutes. Oh my gosh, look how beautiful that turned out. I'm so happy. It smells just like coffee though. That's the only smell I can smell right now of it. It just smells like coffee. I don't smell any chocolate or oatmeal or anything. It just smells beautifully of coffee. And you'll see where it has, this is the base mixture that's kind of bubbled up on the top, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be beautiful as long as it tastes good. So I have to let it cool for about an hour in the pan. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this beautiful brownie out of the container. So all I'm going to do is just slide down the edges so that I can make sure that it's not stuck on the sides, as it definitely feels like it is. Okay. All right, now we're just going to flip it over and see if we can get it to come out. There we go. Yay! All right, so let's move this. Little pieces. All right, so now we need to gently get our wax paper off. Ooh, this is nice and gooey. Seems to be very, very wet still at the bottom when I turned it over. And I'm wondering if that's just very unusual because the toothpick came out dry. So I'm not exactly sure why, but we're just going to let this sit and rest a little bit longer outside of the pan and see if some of this is going to like firm up. But it is definitely done. It's done cooking. But we're just going to let this sit for a little bit. And then we'll decide if we're going to put it back in the oven. But this is breakfast brownie bars. So if you like this video, please give it a like and a subscribe, and I will keep making future bakes for you, and we might have to try this one again because this one looks like it might be a tentative fail. So I'll see y'all in the next bake.